Taxpayers pay again. That should be the headline on half the political stories in America. Now, let's be clear from the start. Government costs money, roads cost money, police cost money, fire departments cost money, national defense costs money, schools cost money, courts cost money, basic services cost money. Nobody serious is saying government should cost $0. The real question is this: how much should it cost? Who decides? Who benefits? And why does the average taxpayer always seem to be the last person considered? Because when politicians want to announce a new program, they talk about compassion. When they want to announce a new agency, they talk about progress. When they want to pass a new spending bill, they talk about investment. But when the bill comes due, they suddenly get quiet. They do not say, "This will come from your paycheck." They do not say, "This will increase your cost of living." They do not say, "This will push debt higher." They do not say, "This will make interest payments eat more of the budget." They just say the government will pay for it, but the government does not have its own money. The government has taxpayer money. That means your money. And if the government does not take it now through taxes, it borrows it, spends it, and the taxpayer deals with it later through debt, inflation pressure, higher interest costs, or reduced services. That is the game, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Look at the federal level. The national debt keeps climbing, deficits keep running, interest payments keep growing, and while politicians argue on camera, the machine keeps spending in the background. The Congressional Budget Office has been warning that deficits are large by historical standards and are projected to stay that way. That is not a random opinion from some guy online. That is the nonpartisan budget office that tracks this stuff. And when interest on the debt rises, that is money taxpayers are paying just to service the debt. Not to build a bridge, not to fix a road, not to hire more police, not to secure the border, not to improve schools, not to help veterans, not to make life better, just interest. That is like making payments on a credit card and realizing most of your payment is not even touching the actual balance. That is where bad fiscal decisions lead, and regular people understand this better than politicians think, because regular people cannot live like that forever. If your household keeps spending more than it brings in, eventually something breaks. If your credit cards are maxed out, eventually the bill comes. If your car payment, rent, groceries, gas, and insurance eat your entire paycheck, you do not get to stand at a podium and call it an investment. You have to make choices. Government should have to make choices too, but instead politicians in both parties have learned a dirty trick. They promise benefits now and push the cost into the future. They get the applause today. They get the campaign ad today. They get the headline today. They get to act like heroes today. And then years later, regular people are left with the bill. That is why people are angry, not because they hate every government program, not because they do not care about people, not because they want chaos. People are angry because they feel like the deal is rigged. If a regular person wastes money, they pay for it. If a small business makes bad decisions, it closes. If a family cannot afford something, they have to say no. But when government wastes money, it does not disappear. It becomes a tax increase, or a fee, or a bond, or a deficit, or inflation pressure, or cuts somewhere else, or some complicated budget trick nobody explains clearly, and once again, taxpayers pay. Now bring it closer to home. California is a perfect example of this frustration. This state has huge wealth, huge taxes, huge budgets, and still somehow the average person looks around and asks, where's the money going? The roads are still rough. Homelessness is still everywhere. Housing is still unaffordable. Gas is expensive. Utilities are expensive. Insurance is getting crazy. Small businesses are squeezed. Working families are stretched thin. And then Sacramento comes back and says it needs more money. That is why a street-level political channel matters, because the average person does not talk like a budget committee report. The average person says, I work every day, I pay my taxes, I follow the rules. Why does it feel like I'm getting punished? That is the question politicians do not want to answer. They want to talk in percentages, they want to talk in projections, they want to talk in 10-year windows, they want to talk in technical terms, but normal people talk in receipts. The grocery receipt, the gas receipt, the rent payment, the car insurance renewal, the property tax bill, the electric bill, the registration fee. That is where politics becomes real, not on cable news, not in a press release, not in a campaign speech. Politics becomes real when your money leaves your pocket. And that is why taxpayers pay again is not just a slogan, it is a pattern. A program fails, taxpayers pay again. A city mismanages money, taxpayers pay again. A state overpromises, taxpayers pay again. The federal government runs another massive deficit, taxpayers pay again. A politician makes promises they cannot afford, taxpayers pay again. A department wastes money and nobody gets fired, taxpayers pay again. And here is the worst part. The people who question it are often treated like they are the problem. If you ask where the money went, you are called negative. If you ask why taxes are so high, you are told you do not care. If you ask why programs keep failing, you are told you do not understand. If you ask why government cannot live within a budget, you are told the situation is complicated. But sometimes complicated is just a word used to protect people from accountability. Because the basic question is simple: are taxpayers getting value for their money? That should not be a left-wing question or a right-wing question. That should be an everybody question. But from a right-leaning common sense perspective, the answer is obvious. Government has gotten too comfortable spending money it did not earn, too comfortable raising fees, too comfortable borrowing, too comfortable blaming the other side, too comfortable promising everything to everyone, too comfortable acting like taxpayers are an unlimited ATM, and that has to stop. A serious government should do what families and small businesses do every day: prioritize, cut waste, pay attention to results, stop rewarding failure, stop funding programs forever just because they exist, stop pretending every dollar spent is automatically compassion, because compassion without accountability becomes waste, and waste is not free. Waste gets paid for by the person working overtime, the person driving an older car because they cannot afford a new one, the person skipping a vacation, the person trying to keep a small business alive, the person choosing between saving money and paying another bill. Those are the people who pay for political failure, and that is why this issue matters. Now, some people will say, well, what would you cut? That is a fair question. But here is the answer politicians hate. Start with the audits. Show us what works, show us what fails, show us which departments are over budget, show us which contracts are overpriced, show us which programs have no measurable results, show us who gets paid when the taxpayer gets nothing. Put the spending out in plain English, not a 1,000-page document nobody reads. Plain English. How much came in? How much went out? Who got paid? What did taxpayers get back? That is not radical. That is basic accountability. Every small business has to know where the money goes. Every family has to know where the money goes. Government should not get a special pass. And if a program is important, prove it. If a department is necessary, prove it. If a policy works, prove it. If a contractor deserves public money, prove it. Taxpayers should not have to beg for transparency. Transparency should be automatic, because the money belongs to the people first, not the politicians, not the agencies, not the consultants, not the lobbyists, not the campaign donors, not the insider class, the people. And that is the heart of this issue. There are two different Americas. There is the America that makes decisions, and there is the America that pays for them. The decision makers get speeches, titles, offices, security, pensions, donors, and media coverage. The taxpayers get the bill. And that gap is why trust is collapsing. People are not stupid. They see the game. They see politicians campaign on fixing problems, then years later the same problems are worse. They see billions spent, but neighborhoods still struggling. They see taxes go up, but services do not feel better. They see elected officials blame everybody except themselves. And eventually people start asking, where did the money go? That is the question this channel is going to keep asking. Where did the money go? Who approved it? Who benefited? Who got paid? What did taxpayers get in return? And why are regular people always expected to just shut up and pay again? That is not how a healthy country works. A healthy country respects its taxpayers. A healthy state respects its taxpayers. Taxpayers are not numbers on a spreadsheet. They are workers, families, business owners, veterans, retirees, and young people trying to build a life. When politicians say government will pay, remember, you pay. No more blank checks, no more excuses. Subscribe to Right Street Level Politics and comment, are taxpayers getting their money's worth?